often mocked for its strange appearance. The subject of this video is a Battlemech which was a staple of the medium mechs within the Star League Defense Forces during the Reunification Wars. Referred to by players as a hockey puck, or often as a death Roomba, this Battlemech has, despite its time in the SLDF, a poor history in terms of its combat effectiveness. All the same, let's begin looking into this Terran vehicle. Built by Martinson Armaments, the Hoplite. A medium mech weighing in at 55 tons, the Hoplite was first deployed by the Star League Defense Forces in 2578, during the Reunification Wars. This machine was successful for its initial run during the war, and would receive several upgrades over its service in the Star League. In the latter days of the Star League, though, most of these mechs would find themselves taken out of service by the Defense Forces themselves, and would be sent as second-hand units to the Terran militia, the effective second-hand military of the Empire at the core of the Star League. This would result in them participating in the Amaris Civil War from the opening round, with these Terran-produced Battlemechs fighting the RimWorld's army, and failing in their duty in most instances. Unfortunately, many of these machines and their pilots would be felled in the Amaris coup as a result, and those that remained were pressed into service for their new master. With the return of Alexander Kerensky and the SLDF, these Battlemechs would face down their former operators, and would be shattered and destroyed. What few remained in the Inner Sphere would not survive the aftermath of the Amaris Civil War. The First Succession War. This infantry support, Battlemech, and general low-maintenance machine would return to the Inner Sphere through the clans, and most notably by arriving with the Wolf's Dragoons. It would also survive in the ranks of the secretive organization known as Comstar, would eventually deploy these mechs themselves against the clan invaders in the Battle of Tukiad. Having returned to its roots, it has not left the Inner Sphere again since its arrival. Now it can be found in the hands of mercenaries and houses alike. Not the original Hoplite, but one of the most common successors seen in the Star League and early Succession Wars, the HOP-4D uses a series of standard technologies as its base in order to ensure that its cost remained reasonable. It utilizes a standard internal structure, cockpit, and gyro, for instance. For its additional advanced rule features, one would expect it to have the low-maintenance quirk given its description, but this in fact is absent, despite it being built to be easily maintained and serviced. It does suffer from the no arms or minimum arms quirk, along with other Hoplite models, which makes its piloting skill rules more difficult should it fall over, and has several other hindering effects on its overall performance. Unlike most other 55-ton Battlemechs of its age, the Hoplite doesn't prioritize speed, and as a result it installs an adequate 10-ton DAV 220 Fusion Standard engine, providing it with a maximum speed of 64 km per hour, or 6 movement points in the tabletop game. This lets the Hoplite move at the standard rate of combat for its era, and later for the standard movement of strategic operations for battle line mechs in the Inner Sphere. It's slow compared to many of its counterparts in the same weight bracket though, but most of its contemporaries are meant to be some faster form of medium mech, and don't often end up as battle line mechs like the Centurion or Vindicator. The Hoplite alternatively is more in the vein of these designs, even if it does not perform as well as them. Though the Star League did have access to double heatsinks, not every design has them, and the Hoplite 4D is an example of one that did not. It's strangely oversynced all the same, despite not having the ability to really generate much heat at all. It has no jump jets, and its weapons are limited in their quantity and they are ammunition based. It installs 16 heatsinks overall, which is approximately 3 times the total it actually requires. The problems with the Hoplite begin to appear once we look at its weapon options, which are very limited. Mounted in its right arm is a Miradon XL LB-10X autocannon, with 2 tons of ammunition, giving it 20 shots. This will, under normal conditions, be deployed with stock cluster ammunition. Its only other weapon is a Conan 5 LRM-5 launcher, which is at best a harassment weapon. It has no ability to punch through armor, and it only has the ability to crit seek. It has no energy-based backup weapons either, and its LRM ammunition is in its center torso. Also, as a final point, its LRM-5 is mounted in the left arm, meaning that if both arms are removed in combat, it has no remaining weapons on board the mech. The Hoplite is, in a brief description, an absolute trash fire, with no ability to punch through armor, though ammunition dependent, and it's built entirely to crit seek, but is undergunned doing it. It is entirely dependent on the units it is deployed with to do most of the heavy lifting in battle. It cannot be relied on by the rest of its unit. Much like the Greek warriors it is named for, the Hoplite focuses heavily on defense, and invests 11.5 tons into standard plating, giving it 184 points of armor. This is an abundance of protection for its time, making it have the same amount of armor as mechs such as the famous Marauder. The Hoplite is a medium mech, with a heavy mech's volume of protection. It is impressive, even if the Hoplite struggles in many other senses. The HOP-4D Hoplite is a subpar mech in many respects, even for the era it was designed and developed for. It sacrifices too much in order to oversync itself, and in order to protect itself from incoming attacks. There is often a triangle of properties: attack power, defense power, and mobility, and often mechs invest in different spaces, just like tanks in real life, and end up in one place or another in terms of effectiveness. But designs are either built to be balanced, or move in the direction of 2 of 3 of these points on the triangle. The Hoplite does not do this. It moves in the direction of armor, and only armor. Its attack value is very minimal, in fact. It is less combat effective than a Shadowhawk 2H in terms of its firepower overall. Its movement, while not too slow, is not reflective of its attack power. It has too many heat sinks for its minimum weapon systems, so it's not fast and doesn't hit very hard. It wastes tonnage on heat sinks that it doesn't need, and it's armored like a heavy mech. While this may find some battlefield application somewhere, this by no means is an effective war machine. This is to say nothing of the fact that it is utterly ammunition dependent, and will not be able to defend itself over anything like a longer deployment away from its supply lines. To add to all of this, it doesn't have any cases for its ammunition, and it stores ammunition in its center torso. Even as an infantry support mech, a task it doesn't fill very well either, it seems inadequate, as it can't actually support infantry particularly well. The Hoplite 4D is the most common version of these mechs, and is quite frankly underwhelming. It is a 55-ton Roomba, but without any vacuum capabilities, and is human-piloted, removing the bonus of it taking care of itself. It should have been called the HOP-4D Roomba, as this would have at least spared the name of the Hoplites for a more worthy mech. During the Star League era, the Succession Wars, and its reintroduction with the Wolf Dragoons and Comstar, the Hoplite would have several variants, but few of them are truly different or noteworthy. As a result, I will only be covering them briefly in this video. The 4A and 4C are considered to be precursors to the 4D. They are largely the same, frankly, but carry a more traditional AC-10 autocannon in place of its LBX autocannon. This gives it solid round hits, but with slightly shorter range. It does not markedly improve or decline the design. An attempt by Martinson to make a more mainline battlefield unit, the 4B unfortunately appears to have underperformed in this role. It possesses a PPC in place of an autocannon, and upgrades its LRM-5 to an LRM-15 with 2 tons of ammunition. It was not broadly used, though some examples would be seen among the clans after their exodus. Otherwise known as the Royal variant, the 4BB was not actually a Star League design, but one built by the clans after their exodus. Though not officially for the Royal divisions, this would appear as a mech fighting for both the Pentagon worlds and clan forces. It has an LRM-15, though this time it is upgraded with an Artemis 4 system. It has an ER PPC instead of a normal PPC, and installs a Guardian ECM. It has cases for its ammunition and double heat sinks. An anti-missile system is added as well in order to improve its survivability yet further. This is often considered to be the best variant of the Hoplite built so far, barring perhaps the later models built by the clans using clan technology. It still lacks any meaningful vacuuming features though, meaning that it is still a failed Roomba. Unfortunately, one will be unable to get a refund from the original manufacturer on Terra, as these were produced on the Pentagon worlds. It is a very disappointing machine, and likely is a model that shouldn't have been released in this state, at least not without the ability to actually clean your house. The Hoplite is, for most of its time in the Inner Sphere, a mech which does not live up to the legendary name of Hoplite, which was taken from some of the greatest warriors in history. While it can be functional at times, it is mostly a mech which has limited stamina, limited ability to damage and influence the battlefield, limited ability to move to secure objectives, limited ability to engage infantry targets, something which may be useful, even in a limited way, for an infantry support mech, and something which struggles to engage mechs or tanks. The only job the Hoplite has, in almost all of its configurations, that it can perform well, is that it can be blasted into scrap over the course of a protracted engagement. This is not ideal, and explains why the Star League largely abandoned the design. Even its most famous refit, the 4BB, is little more than a Star League tech upgrade of a Griffin, but without any arms, and no jump jets. What this is to say is that the Hoplite just doesn't have many good outings. Its failures are known far and wide, and this likely relates as to why it doesn't have more variants. At least those of note. The ancient Hellenic warriors would roll over in their graves in the Battletech universe, if they knew they'd been honored with such a glorified, defective robot vacuum. The most depressing part about this Roomba is that it sucks, but doesn't vacuum. Thank you for joining me here today. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. I do updates very frequently, and you'll be happy with the content, I think. Also, a huge thank you to all the YouTube members for this channel. When you hit the join button and become a member, you take an extra step in supporting the content on this channel, and I can't thank you enough, because this content is only possible because of viewers like you. And with that, I will see you all in the comment section below.